Hey guys, welcome back to another Disney Twisted Tale review. My name is Hala, and I have been reading and reviewing these books for the past couple of years. Last year, I actually reread every single book and did a full ranking, and I didn't do a joint review, but I did do the full ranking of the 1920-ish that were released at the time. And literally the day that I posted that, this book came out, but only in the UK and Australia. This one is Be Prepared. You obviously know what we're going to get into because you clicked on this video, but we're going to talk about Be Prepared, which is the Lion King Twisted Tale. And it wasn't great. Simba, I'm sorry. Alrighty, so usually I start these reviews off by reading you the title, blurb, and synopsis. So we're going to do that. And instead of me just doing like a very succinct, is it ever succinct though? Like I feel like I just ramble, but like a quick 15-minute, this one might be a little bit longer because we kind of have to go, not necessarily page by page, but almost chapter by chapter, if not just like chunk by chunk, because I need you to understand my frustration. Okay, it's gonna come out. I'm sorry. This might be a more scathing review than I typically enjoy doing. I wouldn't say I like bashing on anyone's work in particular, but this was one you weren't supposed to mess up. And I gave you a second chance. And you did me dirty. You did all the lions dirty. The only one who had any sense of a brain was Zazu. He was the only one that made sense. So let's get into it. What if Nala was compelled to team up with Scar for a secret reason? 6 months after the death of her best friend Simba, Nala finds herself clinging to a rumor that the young cub might actually be alive. But the trip to Garamba is long and fraught with danger. It is definitely a journey her overprotective mother would not let her take. Sneaking out one night, Nala finds her confidence quickly waning, while the Pride is in an uproar over her disappearance. Having felt the Pride's distrust and dislike for him growing, Scar takes it upon himself to track the errant cub. Finding Nala is easier than he expected. The two travel together, uncomfortably helping one another as the perils of the wild come at them from all sides. Nala has never liked Scar, and yet finds herself having to rely on him, at least partially, to help her reach Garamba and Simba. Will that unlikely partnership form a tentative bond, or will it be the biggest mistake Nala's made in her young life? If you've watched a few of my reviews, you know that I don't read the synopsis in advance because I kind of want to go in blind and like experience it without any expectations. Did I take a glance at it this time? A little bit. And the large reason for that was this whole secret reason. It's one thing to be ambiguous. It's another thing to sound like you don't know either and just kind of winging it, very much so. So I did glance at the back, but I think I had glanced at it and I figured out, okay, so they're going to be teaming up together to go get Simba. All right. I have an expectation on the many expectations because Lion King is one of my favorite Disney movies ever. I can quote that thing. I used to be able to quote it backward and forward. Now I'm a little rusty because I'm a 30-year-old adult. But in any case, Lion King is near and dear to my heart. I don't even know where to start because I just want to burn it. So we're just going to go and follow along with the story. We start off Be Prepared with a prologue. Not too many of them have prologues, to be honest, but this prologue, it sets us in the animated movie when Simba and Nala have sneaked into the elephant graveyard. And we literally have dialogue for about a page. So we're setting up the scene with them looking at the skeletons and like all the spooky. And it's, you know, it's the part where they're like, it's really creepy. Yeah, isn't it great? Like that scene, right? That's the dialogue we get, exactly. Notice Everything else is just exposition because we just decide to like rush through that whole scene. And I get it. We don't necessarily need that because it's not new information if you've seen the movie. If you're a reader who hasn't and you picked this up, yeah, it's definitely very disappointing. But also, because of the way that exposition is written, it really pulls you out of the story, and it also feels like nothing is serious. My big points in this are, especially like in the action, and unfortunately this author does this throughout the entire book. Anytime there's like actual fighting or intense active moments, is you'll get this buildup of all this character emotion and how scared they are and like wishing they didn't do the thing, and then you get a quick little, and he smacked the hyena. Actually, I can probably find it. I can probably find it because it's really short. Oh, yeah, here we go. So the hyenas were chasing the cubs, and then they hear the roar of Mufasa, knowing that he came to save them. Nala looked on in awe as Mufasa ravaged the hyenas. He took on all three with barely any effort, sending them scurrying back to the holes they'd crawled out of. That's what we get for the action. Because after that, he just faces the cubs and he's angry because the hyenas are already gone. So we was not happy starting this book. But we wanted to give it a chance because, you know, it's a prologue, like I said. We know what happens. It was also an interesting part to start the story at. That I didn't really, there was no like sense in trying to think deep on why she picked that part in particular. But needless to say, 3 days later, so after he, you know, escorts the cubs home, we get a 3 days later, and everybody has just heard that Mufasa is dead and Simba is dead. That's our intro to the story, guys. It's great. Also, I got a boo-boo. Very quick, very untactful start to the story, in my opinion. Like, it was just like, how do I get to this point? Here's the setup. Duh. So if this were any other book, like anything where you, whether or not you have an outside context, there is nothing in this prologue that makes me necessarily care about Simba or Mufasa or the fact that they died. I'm not really attached to Nala yet. She just seems like a scaredy baby. Prepare for the Nala rant. I know some of you were expecting it from our live stream chats, but it's coming. It's coming. Then we jump to 6 months later. And I looked this up. This is one of the few things I did want to look up in terms of lion facts. So they're like considered adults around the age of 2. In my head, even though this was 6 months later, I'm still picturing like baby cub. Like we get when they're young before Simba goes through his like growth spurt montage. So I couldn't not picture them being small still, even though in theory they're in that like middle teen range. So it's not quite full-grown Nala who finds Simba, but it's got to be somewhere between baby cub and that. Did not have a good image for that because she sounds like a baby the whole time. So the big thing right off the bat, Nala is teased and ostracized by pretty much all the other lion cubs because she is babied by her mom. So it's not even quite like she's not like other girls because she's different. It's very much, wow, you're a baby. You can't even hunt. And just mean girls, like unnecessarily mean. And it's like every lion cub is coming after her. The only one that seemed to be her friend was Kamari, who is the only other cub that's a male. Kamari was currently the only boy cub. And he's like kind of her friend, but because he's also like a baby and nervous, like that's how they're friends. That's how they're holding on to this friendship. But even like the younger cubs are teasing Nala for being a baby. And it's not even her fault because she wants to go learn and hunt, but her mom literally won't let her out of her sight because she's traumatized by what happened to Sarabi when she lost Simba. She doesn't want that to happen, which is an understandable parental reaction. A little over the top though. A lot over the top, really. It's not lion enough, I guess. And this is a weird line, which I have yet to see this author, but In the anthology, there were some other stories where the characters weren't human. It was Bambi. It was Robin Hood is definitely more humanized people like animals, but this is the first Twisted Tale full length that we get where the characters are not humanoids. They're animals. And I think a lot of the actions, portrayals of emotion, and like even the turn of phrases. So like if you see something firsthand, like firsthand is a phrase that we immediately know what it means. They did choose to put like, and they experienced it first paw. Initially, I think I could have been like, oh yeah, that makes sense because they're animals, they have paws instead of hands. But in the same instance, now my brain is kind of stopping on that word because I'm like, I don't recognize this phrase. Oh wait, yes, it is this because of this reason. I think they honestly could have kept just the English terms as they were. So just keeping first hand instead of first paw. There were a couple times where it did make sense to use paw instead of a hand or a foot, but it was very few and far between. Whereas all the other ones, I was like, it's first hand. You're trying too hard. There was another part in here. It's a little bit later. I'm sure I'll come across it where like, Nala's mom grabs her, but she's like holding her to her chest and rocking her. And I'm like, that's not what lions do. Or maybe it was Nala and the other cub, but we'll get there. But yeah, like lions, cats. They're gonna nuzzle, they're gonna lick to comfort somebody or a cub, not rock them. So, too much human what is going on in this exposition, just so you know. Nala is basically ostracized because her mom babies her following Simba's death. And it's only going to get worse because now that Nala and the other cubs are in her age group are close to becoming like, I assume they have to be close to that 2-year line, maybe 1-2 years, not sure. But all of a sudden, they're old enough to participate in the hunting games to prove that they are going to be like helpful lions or lionesses to the pride. Well, Nala knows how to pounce, just barely. So nobody wants to be on her team because they go in like groups of 3s. Of course she biffs it, but like her team was actually like, they got a few small creatures, so they weren't going to necessarily fail. That is until Nala's mom freaks out and rushes into them to save Nala and bring her back because she couldn't see her. And it's at this point, which is weird because it's 6 months since Simba's death, right? So she's probably just been getting worse over the past 6 months. But it's at this point where the other lionesses, like the adult ones, are like, you gotta chill, Seraphina. Also, I don't know who named her. We're gonna look up if I find a family tree that's semi-canon for Lion King, we're going to look at that and see if her name's on there. As I don't know where these other names came from, but I'm not going to dispute the names because I don't know. But they were like, yeah, you need to chill. Like, you just messed up the hunt and everything. But very quickly they turned to, let's celebrate the winning team. And this, during this celebration, we also get to see Sarabi enacting her queenly powers, even though there's technically not a lion queen in the hierarchy. Every lioness is equal per my few minutes of research. I don't think there's an alpha lioness, but I don't quote me. I still could do more digging. Regardless, Sarabi and Seraphina actually used to be best friends. Because of this, Nala thinks if she can get Sarabi to tell her mom to like back off and let her hunt, that she'll have a better chance because it's Sarabi saying it, who's the queen, and be her best friend. Mind you, we're 6 months into this controlling mother situation. It does not go well. Instead of just being like, she has to learn how to hunt, so you need to suck it up, she kind of doesn't get too many words in before Seraphina's freaking out, being like, did you tell her to say this to Nala? And so she's freaking out. She's very like off-put and like, but Seraphina's like, I don't want to turn out like you did when you lost Simba. And that's when Sarabi's like, okay, I'm not touching this anymore. That hurt. And they like go their separate ways. Where is Scar in all this? Scar is sleeping on a rock. He was awakened a little bit by the whole like kerfuffle with the lionesses, but then he just comes down and is like, hey, stop. I'm in charge. Scar is really not in this. And I would like to point out, remember the synopsis? This is about about the part that Nala and Scar actually like team up. And by team up, I mean are in the same vicinity doing a thing like at the same time. That's literally the last 100 or so pages. So like I said, Scar is pretty much sleeping through most of this book, but he's woken up by the hunting games celebration. You know, he calls Zazu like to have Zazu tell him what's going on. And when I said Zazu is the only character that like knows what's going on and makes sense, like Zazu is pure Zazu through this. He's informative, he talks a lot, he's there when you need him, but he's also not just like undue, like he doesn't have undue loyalty to Scar. So unlike with Mufasa where he'd be right there, with Scar, you have to call him a couple times and maybe shout a little louder and he'll come he'll come when he's ready. Kind of not necessarily rejection, but like, you're not my king. I appreciated that. However, I don't appreciate that anytime we refer to Zazu, like in the text, or actually in some dialogue too, is we just keep calling him the Major Domo. I've never seen that word so many times in my life, and now it is a trigger. It wasn't like, yeah, Scar is with Zazu. It's no, Scar is with his Major Domo. His Major Domo did this, and his Major Domo, and I'm like, yet you have officially ruined this word. So that was very, very annoying, but Zazu himself was the best character in this book, possibly. So yeah, Scar has them like chill out, because he's also thinking of like, all right, cool, you did the thing, now you can actually hunt more for me, but also like the hyenas are here, the hyenas need to eat, which the hyenas and the lionesses are obviously not getting along. But we're going back to Nala's POV because she is the star of the show. And it's just very disappointing to read a character who, even in the movie, even as a cub, you can see that she's spunky, she's brave, like she's the one like not necessarily egging Simba on, but like she is that challenge. Like when she's getting groomed and Simba comes to find her and she's like, so where are we going? It better not be any place dumb. She's kind of got that like don't take me to this baby place. Like she's cool, right? Nala is cool and confident and strong and brave. While I can understand the death of your best friend could affect you, and the exceedingly worried mother and her babying could affect you, Nala didn't feel like Nala at all for the majority of this book. It really wasn't until the tail end where she started getting confident in herself again that she felt like Nala, which again, as a character arc, I can understand to a point, but it took too long. It literally was probably in the last 50 pages where I'm like, there's Nala. Now we're at a point where it felt like the story would begin and it was the ending. Yeah, she's just very whiny. She doesn't necessarily baby herself, but it's very much a woe is me. My mom won't let me do this. Everybody hates me. But when my mom's not around anymore, like, will the other lionesses kick me out? Because that is a thing that like prides do, is they can kick out or expel lionesses, etc. from the pride. So it is a thing. It is definitely a legitimate concern, but we still just get a lot of woe is me, especially with, you know, how quickly animals age. Like in those 6 months, you should be well at a point where you're breaking away from that. And also the other lionesses should have stepped in sooner. And also, especially because they like, technically, according to my research, they have their cubs and they come back when they're about at least 3 months old. And then it becomes like a communal cub raising situation. So you're not just raising your own cub, you're raising the other cubs and they're raising your cub. Like there was even a line of like, they have very little favoritism toward their own cubs, which I was like, do they now? Because Serafina just only cares about Nala. It was an interesting little tidbit that reinforced the fact that Serafina should not have had this much influence over Nala. But following that up, because of my perception of Nala's character to be a confident, brave, strong little lion cub, I feel like her initiating the adventure would have happened much sooner to follow that rumor of Simba being alive. Especially because when you read the synopsis, you think this is going to happen like hereabouts. She's going to go and start looking for Simba and Scar's going to be with her. And then them journeying together is like the moments of the story. to fill these pages. No, not the case. And really, we don't get any action from Nala until it looks like about chapter 6 or 7, when a mongoose comes in with rumors of another sighting of Simba in Garamba. And it's also like backed up by Rafiki having a vision of Simba standing there with a rotund companion and I think he said tall, but it's Timon. It's skinny companion. It's at this point where she starts getting the idea of going to Garamba, because conveniently, Garamba was the place that she and Simba talked about and dreamed about going to when they were cubs together, and they really wanted to see the Blue Grotto, specifically the Blue Grotto. Sounds like it's near the sea. I would like to see a map. All of this information we are now only getting as we are given that kind of trigger of Simba could be sighted in Garamba. This is not the first time, nor is it the last time, that we get that very convenient piece of information. It's so dang important. It's so very specific that makes everything work out in the end. She gets hyper-focused on that, decides that she is going to sneak away from the pride, get away from her mom, and try to find Simba and bring him back herself to prove she is worthy and capable of doing things. But before she can do that, we get a hyena scuffle. This is the scuffle I was going to talk about, because the hyenas take the lioness's hunt and they like start going through their stores of food all of a sudden, which, future me, is there any info on lions storing food? Because I'm pretty sure it's eat what you can and leave the dead carcass for the vultures. But yeah, I was like, stores of food? Like, what are they putting them in clay vases? Making some wicker barrels? But anywho, the hyenas are taking the lioness's food, causing them to kind of go at each other before Scar steps in and is like, basically being like, my hyenas didn't do anything. They have a right to be here too. We need food. Like, feed me, feed the hyenas, go hunt. So Scar being Scar. But a follow-up to that is he does reprimand the hyenas to a point of like going after the food in the stores as to like try to keep the peace, because he knows the lionesses don't like him. It's a very weak Scar. It just didn't feel like that. Not to say like he was exceptionally cunning or anything with the whole plot to murder Mufasa, but in the same way, like, that took quite a bit of planning and execution, whereas he can't even be bothered to like get up half the time. Also brings to the question, because most of the time when a new male takes over the pride, they kill off all the cubs so that their seed can make the pride stronger and propagate, etc. He obviously didn't do that. Nala's still here. All the other cubs are still here, and we have even younger cubs, which brings the question, are they young enough? If they're at least 3 months, they could be Scars. The real questions we don't get answers to. Who's your daddy? But really, does nobody think of like what's going on in this pride? Hi, yes, I look totally different than like 2 seconds ago, but it's a different day. I am back to finish divulging, which we only got this far, so there is more to come. All right, the last thing that we went over was Nala planning to escape from Pride Rock so that she can go find Simba in Garamba. There's no issues with her escape plan. She does get past the lionesses. She like tracks the ones that are outside guarding, finds the loophole when one's gonna take longer to come back, gets out of there, gets past the water hole, and then Abina, who is one of the younger cubs in the pride, also came after her. Yes, Abina is a younger cub, but sounds like a baby, a very annoying baby. And in no way, shape, or form should Nala have said, yes, you can come with me on this dangerous adventure across Africa to find Simba. What she didn't tell her, like, why. It takes actually a bit before she even mentions Garamba in any sense of the word. But she's basically like, I'm going on an adventure, and Abina's like, I'm coming too. This was kind of, again, it's one of those where you're like, this is clearly not a good idea. Why did you do it? But the time that Nala and Abina spend together, they go through the elephant graveyard, they go into the bushlands, so they're outside the Pride Lands proper, which, let me know if this is a just not US thing, but the Outland, as canon in the movie, was called the Shadowland. Don't know why we had to change that. Don't know. I don't know, but I would like to know if you guys know why that is. But if this is an international thing, I accept that. So please let me know in the comments. So they're out. I'm going to call them the Outlands because that's what they are to me. They're in the Outlands, just the two of them. Nala's trying to be brave, but basically she's just sticking to her mission, where she is actually like naturally still scared of what's going on, having to also like protect Abina. But while she and Abina are together, Abina is the one who teaches Nala how to hunt. Now, not to the full scale because Abina is still learning as well, but Abina's actually had chances to go out with the lionesses to learn some tips and tricks, and she divulges those tips and tricks to Nala, which we don't necessarily see. It's not like we get the scene with Abina and Nala creeping along together, and Abina's like, no, you need to do this and you need to do this. Basically, they go after a hare, I believe, and Nala pounces too soon, and Abina's like, why did you do that? Why did you pounce already? And Nala's like, of course I don't understand. But we don't actually see the teaching moment. We just are informed there was a teaching moment, and the next time Nala tries to do it, she does better. Kind of an issue with us spending way too much time in Nala's head talking about the same thing over and over, of how she like feels treated like a baby, etc. There's a lot of super inner monologuing in this book, and not enough on page, like, show me what you're learning, show me the action. It is not my cup of tea. But while they're out there, there's like a elephant stampede, which they get through unscathed, and then a storm comes, and it's when the storm is coming and they're sheltered that Abina's like, I just want to go back home to Pride Rock. Like, I don't want to do this anymore. Who didn't see that coming? Who didn't see that the baby would want to go back home where it's safe? So rather than like convincing her like, hey, we're halfway there or whatever, let's keep going, Nala takes her halfway back. So we did all this somewhat struggling to get out of the Pride Lands, only to go halfway back. They basically go, Nala escorts her to the water hole and lets Abina go the rest of the way home on her own, so like she still can be ahead if the lionesses come after her. If that felt like a redundant and unnecessary thing to happen, it also felt like that to me. But also, this story should have been going differently the whole time. Am I slightly biased? Not that I've read a better version, but like before they decided to do Be Prepared and announce it as a Twisted Tale, I was like, ooh, if I were to do it for Lion King, I would make it where after Mufasa's death, Scar takes Simba under his wing. Like Simba or Nala, I don't think I had, I didn't decide on it. Obviously, I didn't start writing it, but they take them under and basically like manipulate them, you know, follow them in such a way and like think that their ways are right, and then have the conflict with their counterparts later. That's where I was going with it. Every once in a while we do get a flashback to like Sarabi in the Pride Lands at Pride Rock with the lionesses. Of course, she is worried because she's seen Serafina suffer the way she did when she lost Simba. This is actually the two things that I mentioned. I mentioned earlier when they were like rocking as a form of comfort. Nala did that to Abina when they were in the shelter from the rain. Instead of doing an actual like cat-like thing to comfort her. I feel like there was a scene where somebody raised their paw. It was something like that, and I was like, why? Human gestures. It's a little further ahead, so we'll just wait till we get there. Nala escorted Abina halfway back, right? Abina shows up as the lionesses are like in a kerfuffle. They're like, we know the hyenas must have taken them, but Scar said they didn't, but we don't believe them. We need to go looking. And Scar's like, no one is going to look. Oh, he says no one's going to look after Abina shows back up. But as they're like about to go do the thing and go find her, Abina comes out of the grass, and it's like, thank God this little cub's fine, but where's Nala? Why isn't she with you? And despite promising Nala that she wouldn't tell the others about, that Abina would not tell the others about Nala's plans, because Nala had gotten to the point of telling her about Garamba. She's of course a baby, so she cracks and she tells them everything. At this point, all the lionesses should have just gone, got Nala, put an end to this silliness. But rather than that, because they do want to. The lionesses actually do want to go take action and get Nala back. Scar says no. And the reason why Scar says no is because he plans to do it, not out of any like actual inner sympathy, but because he wants to essentially bring the cub back in order to make himself look better for the lionesses and try to like start winning them over, like he's actually putting an effort 6 months later. So he and Zazu head out to, head towards the Outlands to search for Nala, because not only is Scar trying to do this for his own image, but since there is a rumor of Simba being alive, he can't let that be. Initially, Scar still has doubts that Simba is actually alive. He still is believing the hyenas who said that they took care of it, right? Even though they just ran him out. Meanwhile, Nala is continuing back on her course through the bushlands and everything. She realizes she's hungry. She does make an initial attempt to hunt, kind of doesn't succeed at it, but then she does successfully catch a hare and lets it go. She's like holding it in her paws and she lets it go because it still has, it can grow and it'll be more filling later, but also like she should have killed it. Instincts. She's hungry. This is her first catch. She should take it while she can get it. Not that I'm an advocate of killing the bunnies, because I do love a bunny. I've had bunnies before. But in this sense of the word, it just felt like a way to make the character not look ruthless, but it's also like, it's a lion. She's hunting. So she doesn't eat anything. She goes back to sleep because it starts to rain again. And when she wakes up, Zazu and Scar are there. And initially, they just want to take her back. While they are walking back all together, Zazu is kind of talking Scar's ear off. So Nala slips away and is caught by a group of monkeys. Vicious monkeys, by the way. Vicious monkeys. So Nala is being basically dragged and tossed and just flown through the trees by these monkeys. Scar now feels like he has to rescue her, because if another cub were to die or something go wrong, technically, while he was the only other one there, like, he knows they're going to get suspicious and they're going to turn on him. So he rescues Nala, which, aside from her bouncing her head about and taking a while on that, him coming in to scare the monkeys away was very quick. Yeah, he basically had like a one-on-one versus one of the monkeys, slammed him on the ground, and that was all it took. The others gathered their wounded friend and took off, shrieking their displeasure. That was all it took. Super exciting. After Nala's rescue, when Zazu and Scar are still like, we need to go back to Pride Rock because you almost got killed. You can't be out here. This is when Nala verbally confesses that the reason she's going to Garamba is for Simba. So now he's confirmed that this is her mission. He's a little more like, this is just folly, right? But I'm going to entertain the idea, and at least we can disprove it, hopefully, and go back and he can still be the hero. Mind you, this is literally the last 100 pages. It is the last 100 pages where the whole, like, them teaming up for a secret reason comes together. So they head out, they take the mountain pass, and of course they're going to run into another storm because the dry season is ending and all these big storms are coming. So when they take shelter again, now they've run into the territory of another pride. This pride being the Hatari lions. I believe that's correct. Hatari. Oh, I found the thing that I don't like. Let me find the other thing first. Yes, the Hatari land. So Pride Lands, Hatari Lands. So there's these 3 youngish male lions who are all brothers, who Scar has had a beef with before, because when Mufasa took over the pride, Scar went to find his own pride, and apparently it was in the Hatari land that he had tried to take over their pride, failed, saved by Mufasa, don't cross boundaries again. However, Scar has accidentally stumbled back into their lands and they're about to mess him up. You would think there was going to be like an epic battle, or at least like Scar trying to defend his life, some sort of skirmish. What happens is, even though Scar has Nala with him, who is a young cub, like visible, like in the descriptions, it still makes her sound like small, she's small cub. Initially, they're like, oh, we're gonna eat her, which makes sense for actual lion things. But then they're like, you know what, you can go run away. If you run away, we won't eat you, but you can't help him. And even Scar is like, Nala, get out of here. And you're like, okay, well, maybe he's telling her to get out of there so he can just like pound on him, right? No. Because he gets backed up against a wall. It's not looking good for him because they're all younger and stronger than him. But Nala, in this instance, because he had saved her from the monkeys and was like helping her get to Garamba, decides to help him. So they're under this rocky ledge and she crawls up to the top and kind of like signals to him from up there. So she's like behind the three lions. And she signals to him that there's something to the right, which is that way. Which is, it's like a small crack of escape in the rock. So Scar notices this, and then Zazu swoops in, starts pecking at the lions, who I guess they get distracted by one hornbill pecking at them, that they totally forget about going after Scar. He managed to slip through the rocks. He and Nala are running. He picks up Nala as they're running towards the river, which is like the boundary of the land. He initially just thinks he can cross it pretty easily, but after all the rains, the river's running quicker, so they kind of get swept downstream much, much quicker, which I was also expecting a waterfall. There's always a waterfall, but there wasn't. They basically got swept downstream quicker than the lions could catch up to them. So no rocks fell on these lions to like make their day worse. There was no lion fighting. We just pecked at them and ran away. So Zazu was really the only thing really helping here. And then they swept downstream enough. Oh, I think this maybe is where he reached up with his paw, which maybe that makes sense. They get swept downstream, and when Scar thinks it's far enough, they just grab a branch and get out. No tension. No waterfall. He is surprised that she did that to save him, and there's that little bit of warm feeling, but also like doesn't feel real. It's one of those like, if we flip the book over and he was like having a situation closer to the beginning, and we're like, okay, so maybe they are gonna like find a common ground over the course of this journey, it might have been more believable. But the fact that we are just getting closer and closer to the end, not carrying much weight. Before I continue with them, I did want to just bring up another thing that makes me grumble in this Sarabi chapter, when she's going to comfort Seraphina, who's just waiting for Nala to come back. And mind you, like, Scar basically told them, wait 2 days, and if I'm not back, then come after us. They do end up waiting the 2 days, and it sounds like they wait a couple more days before Sarabi's like, okay, we're gonna go, because maybe something happened to Scar too, and we can say we thought it was an accident and we were worried, rather than like just disobeying his order. But in her moment of comforting Seraphina, she goes and sits next to her as they're looking out over the grasslands and puts her paw on hers, which is fine, I accept that. And the last line of the chapter is just, words were never spoken because words were unnecessary. If we had been having like good stuff going on, and I could see where like we've had a lot of dialogue, we've talked our feelings out, then there are instances where, you know, not speaking is better than saying what you guys feel. I don't think this was deserved. It felt very lazy, especially in the scope of what we've read of this book so far. Like I said, this is a smaller book than some of the other ones, but the stuff that we need to see is just not being written. Okay, let's get through. We're on 272 of the 326. We're very close to the end. So they're finishing their last leg towards Garamba, and it's really, I think it was supposed to mirror the opening scene where Simba's waking up his dad, because Nala has to wake up Scar so they can keep going, because she's excited to get there. Aside from a few of the like, you gotta wake up, it didn't really have that, like, we could have been at a part where they actually started building a connection, and he was like a surrogate father figure, and she actually looked up to him and cared about him, instead of rushing that into like 20 pages. it didn't carry that same weight. So maybe that wasn't the intention, but it just noticing a few of the ways it was presented makes you think that. They arrived to Garamba the rest of the way with no issues. It's really a short chapter to get there. Immediately, like, they realize it's a big area because it's, you know, a whole jungle, but pretty quickly Nala is the one that finds the blue grotto. Like, she sees sparkly waters of, I think she says, of the sea, and I'm like, are we on the coast? Yeah, but they also feel like talking about moss is important. They find the grotto very quickly because a bonobo monkey told them, like, check the grotto. If you're looking for Simba, he hangs out with Timon and Pumbaa. So very quickly we just get like, yep, confirmation they're here. Which, with as this much left in the book, we kind of need to have this thing move quicker. Now Scar is like, oh, Simba is alive. Maybe my plans are changing and I'm not just bringing Nala back to Pride Rock. Maybe we need to eliminate some witnesses. So his plan flips on a switch that if Simba is actually Simba, he's taking out Simba, he's taking out Nala, he's going to take out Zazu, and he's also going to have to take out this Timon and Pumbaa because witnesses to whatever Simba might have said. So yeah, so much for that fatherly love stuff. Nala is super stoked to have finally found Simba. Like, she runs in at him, they're excited, and then as soon as Scar pops in and is like, hey, it's been a while, Simba like shuts down and is cowering because the last thing he remembers of his uncle is telling him to run away. And the only reason like Simba hasn't really like divulged what actually happened is because of him blaming himself for his father's death, for being in the gorge and creating the situation in which his father died, right? So Simba's holding on to that blame, and that's the only thing that's kept his mouth shut on what actually happened that day. And Scar is taking that to his advantage, so he's basically planning to kill them off. He's just trying to figure out what order, and initially he was going to do like Zazu first because I guess he can fly and get away quicker. But instead, he's like, Nala, you wanted to see more of Garamba, so before we leave, why don't these Timon and Pumbaa take you on a tour while I talk to my nephew in private? And I don't know if Zazu was, I believe Zazu had to have gone with Nala, which let me just confirm because I don't recall where he is in the scene. Small side note while I'm looking for where Zazu went in this scene, it didn't quite feel right to use human names for landmarks. So like, I mean, I don't know much about, like, is Garamba a place in Africa? When they said Lake Victoria, I was like, no, that doesn't sound like that should come out of your mouth. No. I think they also mentioned Morocco. So it just felt like it shouldn't be coming out of their mouths, like these type of names. Like, they can still have names for a lake. It doesn't make sense to call it Lake Victoria. These are the Pride Lands. Like, we're not calling them the safari area that, like, you see. Like, I don't know. It's Lake Victoria is not Lion's Beach. Just saying. So yeah, basically he suggests that Nala and Timon and Pumbaa go out and about. Is Zazu with Nala? Because Timon and Pumbaa are pointing out different stuff. There is no Zazu in that dialogue. So Zazu just did not get written in this part, I guess. Oh, okay. Timon was rambling on about the time Simba had rolled into an antpile, with Pumbaa blithely adding commentary. Zazu had joined them. Oh, Zazu had joined them. So all of a sudden, Zazu joined them. Not sure if Scar told him to or what, but literally just before Nala decides to slip away, because she's feeling suspicious. She's not entirely comfortable with what's going on, so she is already planning to slip away. That's when they're like, oh yeah, Zazu's with Timon and Pumbaa as well, so like, he's not with Simba. She slips away from them and arrives just in time to hear like Scar telling Simba like, oh, you can't go back, no one's gonna want you there. And he's like grabbing a rock with his paw to clobber him, and Nala jumps in just in time to save him. Pretty much Scar turns into evil Scar, like try to kill everything. It doesn't quite go as he planned because Simba and Nala both start scrapping with him. Timon and Pumbaa charge in, Zazu's in. So all 5 of them are attacking him and biting him and like Of the five, though, Pumbaa charging with his tusks probably is the most lethal in this case. But they don't kill him. They don't kill him. They just kind of injure him enough where they can run away. And again, this scene also takes place pretty quickly, even though like a male lion is insanely strong. It's a little hard to believe that two of these smallish cubs and a warthog, a meerkat, and a hornbill could do enough damage to him. But regardless, they didn't kill him. They just did enough damage to run away. And pretty much they just kept running all the way back to the Pride Lands. The lionesses are overjoyed to see the cubs. They were just about to break their following the rules that Scar set and go find him, but lo and behold, this is exactly when they show up. So of course they're happy to see Nala. Sarabi is shocked to see Simba, and like they have an initial hug, and then he's like, wait, I gotta tell you, it was my fault. And in the midst of him saying it was my fault that I was in the gorge and Dad had to rescue me, and then he realizes 6 months later, finally telling somebody about it, that Scar is the one who told him to go into the gorge. And he's just finally triggering that Scar set this up. Now, I understand, like, he probably didn't have a reason to think Scar was trying to kill him until, like, Scar went off. But he didn't realize it till... Where is it? Till page 313, where he realizes Scar is the one who told him to go down to the gorge. He must have planned it all along. Like, now that's the story we're going with. While Sarabi doesn't even, like... She doesn't take it totally at face value for whatever reason. She actually goes and like confronts Shenzi. And this is how I feel through this whole, okay, let's do this. And basically Shenzi says, yeah, we ran him out. Like, we didn't kill him. We just ran him out. So Sarabi like expels all the hyenas using the fact that Shenzi confirmed it was Scar's plan to get rid of Simba. They were like, don't worry, Scar's never gonna, if he ever comes back, like, we'll take care of him. But Scar doesn't get to come back because they, like, sent word out to all the other animals, and the Hatari lions took care of it. So those three brothers are the ones that actually took care of Scar off screen, and I think that was just, like, a passing comment as well. Is it even closure? I mean, yeah, but Sarabi and Serafina make up, commiserating over their varied emotions. Simba and Nala are back to being friendsies, and like Simba was sitting up on their secret little outlook thing, and Nala goes up there and she's like, well, I guess we had our adventure. He's just happy to be home because it's a special place to him, even though Timon and Pumbaa took him in like family. And she's like, you never have to leave again. This is all yours, Simba. This is your birthright. And I know Pride Rock is going to be better because you're here to lead it. The end. We don't know if Simba's qualified. Especially if he's traumatized. Like, could that make him weaker? Like, long story short, long story. And on one hand, I'm sorry that this video was so long and I basically was just ranting the whole time. But on the other hand, you can't do this to Lion King. I don't remember which one was my least favorite in the ranking, but this is now my least favorite. And it pains me to say that. It pains me. I don't even want to put you on this shelf. So yeah, I maintain my stance that Zazu is the only character that was being Zazu and made sense. Especially because we barely got to see any of Timon or Pumbaa to like measure them as characters. Super disappointed in just the pacing. The pacing was really off for me, and there was just too much headcanon, lots of inner monologue, not enough action on the page. And I'm fully aware there's plenty of people who don't like to read action scenes. I get it, but they're lions and they were fighting. I need more than, and then it was over. I only recommend you reading it to form your own opinion because I just do feel very strongly about Lion King. And it may not be as bad for other people. Like, obviously it got published somehow. But if you are only watching this review, I hope you enjoyed it to some degree. And if you haven't already, check out my other reviews. There should be like a linkish thing in this area. And then after you check out the reviews, you can check out my ranking and see. I know it's different than a lot of other people's, and I'm fine with that because that was the vibe. So yeah, that was my rant review of Be Prepared by Farah Roshan. In terms of her as an author, I do recommend, where is it? These are out of order. Almost There was really, really good. That's Princess and the Frog. I think that was her first book, joining the Twisted Tales, but she's written other stuff. She's also written Fate Be Changed, which was better than this book. And I guess my final note is, if you've read the anthology or seen my recap on that as well, there is a Lion King story in here, also written by Farah Roshan, and it was one of my least favorites of the short stories as well. So I just don't think this material was right for this author. So that's my Midwestern goodbye. I will see you guys in the next one. There are 3 more Twisted Tales announced at this point. We have Moana, How Far I'll Go, Lilo and Stitch, and I think Cruel Truth is 101 Dalmatians. And I can't remember the exact order, but I know either Moana or Cruel Truth are coming out next. They already have covers posted, whereas Lilo and Stitch is probably going to be next year. One of those 2 is going to be the next video in some months from now, but I will let you guys go. Thank you again for watching. Hope you read good books, and yeah, be prepared. Be prepared for that.